You might find it odd that even at my small size as a creator, I get quite a few DMs and comments asking me for advice on how to grow a Dead by Daylight channel. Sithis knows why. I can't even figure out why most of you are even here. My videos are kind of garbage and bare bones. I'm not even kidding. I just write a script, record, edit the audio, and then play roughly 500,000,000 games until I find one I feel like would make good visual background and then throw it on top of the audio. This would all do better as a podcast if we're being honest with ourselves, except in order to do that, I'd have to pay a company to upload my stuff to things like Spotify and Apple Music, and I'll bring an RPD offering 100 times in a row as the hillbilly before I pay someone to press a damned upload button. But if there's one piece of advice I can give you, it's to not promise a part 2 to a video you haven't even written yet. I thought I was being clever, viewer. Let's not make a video super long, I said to myself. Break into 2 parts and then what you have will be easy content. But no, viewer, I sat staring at a blank Google Doc for ages, because as it turns out, game balance is really fucking hard. See, in most PvP games, when thinking about the game balance, you only have to think about one side of the coin, because every other game is symmetrical. Everyone on either side has access to the same tools, and this makes changing things far easier. If a gun is too oppressive, you just need to nerf that gun. If an ability sucks the fun out of the game, you only have to think about that ability, and maybe how it interacts with other abilities, but you get my point. In Dead by Daylight, however, it's not just one side, and it's not just 2 sides, it's 3 sides. Killer, solo survivor, and survivor with friends, and even then, it's a problem of how many people are in the survive with friends. A duo stack is not going to be as much of a pain in the ass as a trio, and then trio not as bad as a full 4 stack. It creates compounding problems. Any buff you give to solo queue will inevitably help survive with friends, and that's not always a bad thing, but it can create problems down the road. And before I get a comment suggesting voice chat and a ping system, I addressed this in last week's video. Go watch that one. So you see, viewer, I had to put far more thought into this than I was planning on. I originally was just going to throw a couple of things at the wall and call it a day, but the things I came up with kept bringing issues, and eventually I just sat back, my head in my hands, the head on my neck, get your mind out of the gutter, and just sighed. I wanted to do things like talk about how certain perks could be changed to help solo queue and how we could do maybe some more base kit ideas, but everything that I came up with just kept going more and more toward buffing the survive with friends. And the suggestions I have for you today are going to inevitably buff survive with friends because all of them give more info, which is the best way to buff solo queue in general, is to give more info. But at the end of the day, they're not as bad as some of the things I was coming up with. I was doing things like trying to come up with even not just changing current perks, but coming up with new perk ideas on things that might be able to help solo queues get gens done faster, or maybe help them heal faster or something like that. But then nothing stops the Swift from being able to get those perks and use them. And the second you start talking about things like separating a separate mode for Swifts and solo queue and trying to make things work a certain way in solo queue but not a certain way in Swift, you start creating a whole host of problems that you don't even want to start getting into. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at the admittedly very few things that I came up with in order to improve the solo queue experience. The very first thing I wanted to take a look at is the current Survivor HUD. When the Survivor HUD dropped in the mid-chapter patch for the night, I was ecstatic. It was amazing. I loved the look of it. I loved how it worked. It really helps me out every single day, actually. Having that HUD there has been able to inform a lot of my decision making in games, and it's also been able to help me identify the problem child who's crouched in a corner eating Doritos and playing on their Nintendo DS. But let's go ahead and take a look at a few things that I would add to the current Survivor HUD. Number 1, let me know when someone is being healed and not just when someone is receiving healing. Number 2, let me know when someone is in a locker. I don't know why I want this so bad, but it's just truly frustrating to not know everything that my teammates are doing. So if I see nothing happening, I can only assume that my teammates are currently traveling to somewhere or they're crouching in a corner, right? I want to know when they're in a locker. I just want to know, right? It's not going to help me, but I just want to know. Number 3, let me know what perk is currently in use. For example, if someone is hiding in a locker for Built to Last or Head On, show that perk next to the survivor name. If they are currently under the effects of Lithe, Adrenaline, or any exhaustion perks, show me that. I'm sure we can continue to come up with even more perks that your fellow survivors might be using at a time that you would like to know about. Number 4, show me any status effects. If my teammate is under the effects of Sloppy Butcher, for example, I need to know before I try to commit to a heal. It's really good to know if my teammate is oblivious or if they're blinded or if something like that happens. Granted, the only problem I have with this one, even though I'm the one suggesting it, when it comes to things like Third Seal or Blood Echo or something like that, then this might give away what perks the killer has immediately. So I'm not too sure about this one, but I do still think that it's something that needs to be there. Number 5, show me when things my team is doing is affected by something the killer has. A great example of this is if they're cleansing a hex totem, then show the totem symbol as red, so I know that they're not just cleansing totems to cleanse totems. Not that there's anything wrong with cleansing totems to cleanse totems, I do it all the time. If they are being slowed down on a gen, show the gen progress bar as red, small things like that to help kind of inform me what's going on with my teammates. And finally, number 6, improve the totem symbol overall. If it's cleansing, I want to be able to see the progress, and if it's blessed, turn it blue and show me the progress bar. Just small things like that. As a small aside, I forgot to put this in the script, but I would also like to see progress bars on things like doing pig boxes and opening chests and solving the lament configuration and things like that. Just something to let me know about where my teammates are at in terms of what they're doing. These changes to the HUD will cover almost any basis of what needs to be known among Survivor teams. It's not perfect, but I think all these changes to the HUD are all we can do without breaking informational boundaries that would ultimately lead to most killers becoming useless because of too much information. Next thing, it would be interesting if I can hover over the survivors in the lobby and see their perk loadouts, their items, plus add-ons and offerings that they're bringing. This doesn't help a ton, but I think it'd be interesting to see and sometimes might cause someone to try and synergize with others. And finally, I'd like a communication wheel. Pointing and "come hither, ye filthy bitch" emotes are great and all, but I think we can give something more. Have a button that we can hold down to bring up a wheel with pre-selected options on it. Things like heal me, follow me, work on gen, etc. would be nice. And for the love of God, make sure they can't be spammed, because then I will cry literal tears. And that's all I have for you. I wanted to give so much more, but I truly and honestly couldn't think of anything else. If you have some ideas, throw them in the comments. I'd love to hear about them. And if you want to hang out with me live, then make sure you head over to my Twitch, linked in the description, and join me on Discord if you haven't already, where you can chat with me live at any time of the day. I love you all so much, and I will see you in the next one.